Hello everyone, this is your host for the China Hipster Podcast, Adrian Chen. It's been a long time since the last episode, and thank you for listening to this new episode on India-China relations. My recent interest has been sparked in this subject after listening to a debate at the School of International Studies of Jawaharlal Nehru University. Students who studied different regions in international studies participated in the debate on China and India competition or cooperation. And interestingly, although the ideological component wasn't the measure for winning, all four of the Indians argued for competition, while the two Chinese students who participated argued for cooperation. And following the debate was a heated question and answer session on territorial issues regarding the South China Sea and the Senkaku Islands. And I was really surprised because I used to think that only countries that had a stake in these territorial disputes would be interested. But in reality, Indian students were very much interested in China's stance on the South China Sea. And then I realized through a discussion with a doctor pursuant here, Ramanujam, that because of the 1962 war between China and India, the issue of territory is a very heated keyword in India. And today this podcast would be to unpack the popular perception as well as the academic issues revolving India and China relations. So I'm very happy to host our guest today, Ramanujam, who is a PhD student at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Ramanujam has also completed his master's and master in philosophy at JNU as well. For those of you who don't know, Jawaharlal Nehru University is one of the leading institutions in the studies of liberal arts in India. Politics is always the favorite subject of the day, which makes it a really nice environment for us to discuss sensitive issues such as India and China relations. So Ramanujam has written his Master's of Philosophy dissertation on India and China summit relations. But before we get onto that, I want you to discuss with us first, what is the general perception of India and China relations in your view?
Do you want me to say the perception in the government or academia or general public or younger generation?
I think you can start with whichever.
The present government views India-China relationship, especially in the trade and commerce views, and in its bilateral level, more on a cooperative, but especially accessing resources in other parts of the world, especially in Africa, Latin America, and within the South Asian region, views somewhat conflictual or competitive relationship, because every country wants to access more and more resources in that way. But I see there is a more cooperative relationship between India and China in a bilateral level.
So what explains the amazing amount of tension that I experienced at the School of International Studies event?
I think those who debated on this topic, I think they are the very younger generation, those who are just socialized into the international relations. And whatever they say about, I think they did not have very much access to the authentic sources. Whatever they say, it must be, I think, only the general media, which is more, and the media in India is more of a nationalistic and not more academic or objective.
So you see this problem not only in the commentaries of media, but also in their non-commentary sections.
So in
Their bias. Because usually bias comes through most significantly in the opinion section.
I think one must understand before the bias aspect. Everyone understands the world in a different way. Everyone perceives in different way. Everyone has its own biases, internally constituted or externally imposed. The opinions, I mean, if it is from the political party persons representing in the debate and expressing his opinion, must be viewed as something biased, because in order to say something, in order to defend party's position, he has to say. Or
so you think the media also has a stake in creating this biased view of tensions? Like the people in politics have an interest in portraying their views.
I think it's not only in Indian media or Chinese media or the international media. I cannot say media is an objective. People have their own opinions, perceptions, and all. And also, there is a general view. They have vested interest in promoting certain a view of the world. So
So what is preventing JNU students from reading views from other end of the world? Because different people have different views, but media can serve as a medium for people to understand different views of the world.
JNU students, I think you might have exposed only some students. I think there
Right.
are many students who are pursuing international studies. Many of the students, I think, at the research level, they go for an authentic sources. They read the diplomatic correspondence. They listen to the government people like prime minister, or diplomats, on national security advisors, or intelligence agents. They have very much access to the authentic sources. Some people, I mean, those who are just studying international relations, they are just exposed to the media and they have different views. And even at professors level, those who are teaching, they are much more refined in terms of expressing their opinion or in terms of understanding the India-China relationship.
So, is there a difficulty for the professors here to challenge the views? Do they actively challenge these views when they teach international relations?
Yeah, students, those who are just entering into a master's program who had not earlier exposed to the international studies or international relations must be having some the views in general media that portrays, especially in 1962 war memories and all. It's so dominant in Indian public. So these students, when they ask questions about slightly biased views, and there are professors who explain instead of expressing their own point of view, they explain the facts and figures what happened, so that the students able to form their own opinion.
And from what I've learned from you, that your research in the India and China summit in 1988 changed your views through reading the white papers or governmental correspondence between India and China. Could you please explain some of the background behind how you were interested in the summit, etc.?
I think one must understand and significance of the summit in diplomatic studies or international relations in general. The summit means the highest levels of interaction between the governments. The highest level, say, from India is Indian Prime Minister, China Chinese President, so interacting and discussing about the relationship. The relationship or interaction between countries is two types. One is conflictual and another is intimate interaction. Conflictual can be categorized as a war interaction. The summit or intimate interaction. The intimate interaction is, at least you see in the media when Prime Minister visits China, there is a lot of euphoria created media, there is a lot of relationship. I mean, many agreements are signed, especially tourism sector, culture sector, health sector. Or this portrayal of positive image happens in the summit level. So summits are very significant, and this kind of studies, I think, promotes and enables a positive view between countries.
So, how did you become interested in the summit studies, and
Uh,
particularly India and China?
I was introduced by my professor, who is specialist in diplomatic studies, theoretical level when we studied summit diplomacy. Then I was started thinking about in the real world. So, were there any summits that promoted true relationship? They promoted or initiated a breakthrough relationship. Then I started looking at India China. So the 1988, I think, in the history of diplomatic international relations or in the diplomatic history of India China, I think it's a breakthrough. 1962 to 1988, 3 decades, 2 billion people living side by side, but they did not have people to people level contacts or official level. The contacts confined to just mayor or diplomats level. After 1962 war, India and China, they withdrew their ambassadors from each other country. They did not even have ambassador relations. That tells a lot about the relations between India and China. And the 1988, when Rajiv Gandhi visited to China, The first in 3 decades, it established political level contacts, and also the subsequently many agreements were signed promoting people to people contacts, student exchange programs, promoting cultural relations between India and China, and especially trade. And whatever the happenings at the borders, disputes that still exist, but in spite of that border conflict that transcended.
You are mentioning the 1986 conflict,
Yeah,
when Rajiv Gandhi sent 2,000 troops to what he established as Arunachal Pradesh.
yeah. It was, I think, this 1986. There was a slight incursions from the Chinese side. The Indian Prime Minister mobilizes its forces towards Arunachal area in order to maintain the status quo. Fortunately, the escalation did not happen. War did not break out. So, in order to prevent such escalation that was happening in 1962, Rajiv Gandhi, this event is also a factor to Rajiv Gandhi to take initiative to visit China.
We even see this today, like there are skirmishes between the borders, but at the same time, Xi Jinping and Modi, they're shaking hands. Is it a similar phenomenon?
I think the present day incursions different from what happened in the 1986. The incursions 1986 was much more. It's a massive level. I mean, whatever right now is happening,
It's very small.
Very insignificant. You can say, I mean, border level, you see the incursions happens whether known or unknown people cross. The borders are not demarcated, not clear line was drawn. So people, the soldiers of the India may cross certain territory. The Chinese troops may cross. So this creates knowingly or unknowingly. I mean, basically, I view it is not ordered from the Chinese military establishment or Indian military establishment at soldiers level. It might happen for some reason or other. At present,
This is not initiated from the center, you are saying?
Yeah, it's not initiated from the government level.
So I agree with the optimistic view you took from the standpoint of 1988. It was indeed a very tremendous shift from the previous 3 decades of disconnect.
Yeah.
So to continue my inquiry from regarding the present day, we see many trade agreements being reached, but at the same time, at the cultural level, there is still enmity and some hard feelings. So you have mentioned before to me that you think that Rajiv Gandhi could have reached out because he was the generation after the 1962 war. Personally, from his view, because he has fewer memories from the 1962 war. So he does not feel betrayal from the Hindi chini bhai bhai kind of slogans. And nowadays we are even further away from the 1962 war. But the hard feeling seems to be at a similar level as 1988. So how do you explain this stagnation of thawing of relations? Or at the civilian level, it has still not improved as much in comparison to the summit level. If we compare the Rajiv Gandhi's generation and our current generation, I wouldn't see there is much difference in the sentiments of India-China relation. It is still a very tenuous one. So even at higher levels, there could have been more agreements, but at the base, what do you think?
I think you're right. The present level relationship is also a tense because China's rise, India's emergence in the global stage, and especially the power shifts from the west to the Asia Pacific region. And there is always, whenever the countries are such a massive countries and having the huge military size, and they have huge stakes in the global governance, resources, accessing resources, and prestige, and many more things. And also the external actors we have to take into account, especially United States, Japan, European Union, Australia, within South Asian region, Pakistan. All these countries have stakes in promoting positive or negative view of international relationship. It's not just the relationship in the global level. It present. It's not just have control at the two levels, or India and China. If even India and China want to have a good relationship, but the external actors, especially, they have their own interest to promote a conflict view of image. The China's rise might threaten the India's interest, so that kind of a particular view could be promoted by the external actors in order to have their say in the international system. They want to have their power to be protected. So let's say United States doesn't want to give up its superior status in the international system. It want to be as the superpower. It never want to give up to the China to be another superpower challenging the United States or the Western countries. Or for that matter, if the power shifts to India, they don't want India to take leadership, or they don't want China to take leadership. They're not happy with the China's rise because China's they view the Chinese culture is different. The political democracy is not there. It's much more accepted in the international system. China's still following the one-party communist government, even though it's at economic level, it's following the Western market-oriented economy. And also the Chinese mainly they're not English speaking. They are mostly the Mandarin. West feels they don't want at cultural level also the hegemony will be established by the Chinese in order to prevent such the Chinese rise in the international system.
So perhaps even one day we could say US has accepted that China has become an equally powerful country, but Indians would still have a difficult time to accept this.
Yeah, you're right. India to accept the China's rise. I think India had still that 1962 war memories, even still hunting the younger generation also because they were also socialized into the memories and continuing tense relationship the present day, and also uh, the simultaneously India is also rise emerging as a power. So India could potentially challenge the China in the near future.
So in your view,
Mm.
the people who are concerned about politics also see India as a rising power because actually during my stay at Jawaharlal Nehru University for the previous 3 months, I have seldomly come across discussions that are pertaining to global politics. Much of the attention is devoted to elections within India or happenings within India. So what I mean to say is one person might say Bihar is the best state in India.
Okay.
But I don't hear them saying India is the best country in the world.
I think you must understand about the Indian state politics. India is a federal country and it's composed of 35 states, and every state is having its own culture. They always say that India is also rising, but within India, Bihar is say the Bihar is rising. Gujarat people say Gujarat is also
Right.
rising. It's there is a competition between the states level and the small units called the states within. So there is a healthy relationship. It cannot be viewed as something negative.
I don't mean to say it's negative, but the state level politics attract much more attention. This is true of US as well. US does not, of course, it enjoys its hegemonic power. That's why they can be more concerned with domestic affairs.
Yeah.
But for India, it seems that, they are also concerned more on the state level.
I see your point. I think you're exposed to Bihar elections, and these elections happening in the context Prime Minister is taking as it's a prestige issue. He wanted to establish his own government there. So if his party doesn't win, so it is on personal level, is Modi's leadership could be undermined or diminishing. Whether still Modi have the same charismatic or the accepted leader, so that is taken as a serious thing. So Bihar elections became much more interesting. Otherwise, the state level elections is insignificant compared to the national level. The general elections are much more interesting to understand India's issues, challenges.
And when does the international level become a subject of
Debate.
attention?
Subject of attention. Hi, it's international level. It depends on the happenings in the international system. If, for example, there is terrorist attacks in some parts of the world or any major events to bring the military troops near to China or something that major events happens, India certainly responds to the global events also. And the debate, maybe these events, and especially confined to the debates in the policy circles at the government corridor level or academia level. I mean, it may not be falling into the general public, but at the general elections level, the global politics or India's relations with those global politics is discussed even at the general population level. but it's not on day-to-day basis. It's only confined to the media discussions in academia and policy circles. Uh,
So, what do you think can be the next step for JNU to improve its international studies in the role of facilitating more studies, not understanding, because understanding implies a positive understanding, but even just studies and new perceptions and new debates regarding India and China, or just understanding China?
I think there must be student exchange programs much more. I mean, it's not just 10 students sending from India to China or 10 students from China to India. This does not work.
Must be larger scale.
It must be, let's say, 100 students visiting China or from India to China. So there is a large scale of interaction. See, we see there are many students coming from within South Asia and other countries, but the interaction between India and China is just few students are coming to study here. When the large scale interaction happens, the students, when the interaction happens, they try and overcome first they interact, they understand each other's point of view and try and get over those difficult, embarrassing.
Why doesn't China have a democracy, for example? I'm giving that as an example of what I find most Chinese students find uncomfortable to answer.
Uh,
You're saying there's a lot of initial embarrassing.
See, for example, Indian general public have certain views, and it can be translated into policy level because India is a democracy. I don't see if the Chinese students has certain opinions regarding India-China relations, whether the opinion can be considered into the policy level. No, I don't think, because China is not a democracy. The policy making happens only at the party level,
Right.
the higher circles of the
Right.
government. So whatever the opinions of the students, even interaction also. So unless there is a democracy in China, so it's very difficult to establish the positive view or the interaction what happens between India and China.
So you think this actually is very different from what we were discussing. We were focusing on the 1962 war, but now you are saying that actually the lack of democracy is creating a bad image not only for Western countries, but also for China and India. So I hear so many, especially in the US, like the fact that China does not have a democracy. On a institutional level, we can argue about why. But now you are posing an interesting perception matter that because China doesn't have a democracy, so Indians have a difficulty accepting China as a positive nation.
Yeah, you're right. The regime matters a lot.
To Indians.
So to Indians and especially everywhere, the democracy is accepted political form of the government, which takes view of the general public. But the communist or some of the West Asian countries having only the kingdoms or the kings ruling the country. So where this sorts of regimes does not promote the people's interest, they promote their own party's interest or the regime interest just to stay in the power.
So you might see a positive change if Chinese people's interests were represented in the debate of India-China relations.
Yeah, I think. And also the Chinese government must take into their own general public views instead of only the policy makers' views, the students' views.
So that would be another interesting study to make according to the regimes of the world and their corresponding perceptions in India. So what you are saying is because of China's lack of democracy, that is why it has one of the reasons why it has a negative image. So does India have good relations with all democracies of the world? That also might not be true.
It might not be true, yeah. I do accept even Pakistan recently having democracy, but the past is also matters. And the India-China relations are quite different from what India-Pakistan relations. It's quite different.
Right. So as we can see from this debate, history matters a lot, and even though there's change and adaptation within international relations, you can't change history all the time. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
So that was the 14th episode of the China Hipster Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Chen. Thank you for listening, and please send any comments or questions to wqian91@gmail.com. You can also find China Hipster Podcast on Facebook and like the page.